As the door from the tomb opens, the sunlight beams in and blinds you with its brightness. As your eyes adjust and you step out into the world, you are surrounded by giant trees, perhaps even prehistoric trees. They tower above you. And this is Starships and Steel. And today, we're doing trees. Stay tuned. Welcome back to another episode of Starships and Steel. Over the past few weeks, months, depending whose channel you're watching, people have been making trees. Trees are one of those things that everyone has their own way of doing. I've certainly myself tried many different ways. Some I like, some I don't like. I generally don't like the foliage falling off of them. I don't like that flocking coming off and making little green dust everywhere, so I've been trying to find ways to avoid that. I haven't really come up with anything good. I often just use Woodland Scenics tree armatures, and they're not flocked at all. They're just barren trees. So that's cool, but it shows people where the trees are. However, that being said, a while ago, DM Scotty built some pretty cool trees that I really liked, and so this is sort of like that, but different. The biggest difference is going to be the armatures that we use to build these trees. Other than that, they're going to be pretty similar to those. So thanks for the inspiration, DM Scotty, and we're going to move forward with that pretty soon. Today, we're also drinking some beer while we craft. Today we're drinking 52-foot Stout. And why did I buy this one? Because this is made by the Barkerville Brewing Company. So it's it's brewed in Quesnel, British Columbia. And most of you probably have no idea where that is, but that's cool. I grew up in Prince George, which is an hour and a half north of Quesnel. It's the bigger of the two centers. But outside of Quesnel is a little gold rush town, ghost town now, but now a tourist attraction essentially. A lot of the buildings are still there. Some have been refurbished, but it's still on the site of the gold rush. So it's pretty cool. And that is the little town of Barkerville. So go to Google Maps and check that out. If you're in BC up in that area, I would definitely advise stopping by. It's pretty cool. A little bit off the beaten track, but pretty neat. What else can we say here? So British Columbia 2016 Beer Awards, this took first place. Pretty cool. It's been made with Boreal Amber Birch Syrup and roasted malt. 52-foot stout boasts a deep flavor that always strikes gold. Very dark, pretty bold. Unfiltered, unpasteurized, and hey, if you're a vegan, you can drink this. So that's pretty cool. Let's give this a shot, shall we? Doesn't all fit. It's close though. Foam's got a nice rich dark color. And the beverage itself is very, very dark. And this is a Guinness glass, and I'm still struck by how actually dark it looks in the Guinness glass. So let that go down a tiny bit, and we'll give her a shot. We're waiting for that. For all you Conan fans out there, Pulposaurus launched a Conan game called CROM, Conan Rise of Monsters, back when Monolith launched their board game. Monolith's board game was already running fast and furious down the Kickstarter alley, and Pulposaurus, not quite getting the response they wanted, I think canceled their Kickstarter back then. That's just my own opinion. They recently relaunched, beginning of or middle of June 13th, 14th, something like that. It's currently running on Kickstarter now. It is currently funded. It is a skirmish Conan game loosely based on the world of Conan, with their own little storyline thrown in there. All of the miniatures are pre-painted. It's a little bit pricier because of that, but looks like it might be fun. All the rules and all the components minus the miniatures type, so all the cards and all that kind of stuff, are all available on DriveThruRPG. You just look up Conan Rise of Monsters. Do not type in CROM. If you type in CROM, you will get another rule set by an independent type guy, and he'll charge you $6 for them, which I'm not saying you shouldn't get them, but completely different from what we're talking about right now. Conan Rise of Monsters. I'm going to put a link down below. Let's try the beer. Not too bad. I'm going to give that 4 out of 5. So 4 beer steins out of 5. That's pretty tasty. So, good job, Barkerville Brewing Company. You have most definitely struck gold. Yeah, I like that. It would be better, and this is always my thing, if they produced it with a widget, because that makes it a creamier beer, because the head and the CO2 is much creamier. Well, there's no CO2, or if there is, it's not released at the same time, or it's not dissolved in the liquid. That's what I'm trying to say. That's all I got to say today, though. So let's go finish those crafts. Let's go upstairs and build some trees, and I will see you guys at the end.
Okay, so we're going to start with making our bases. We're just going to use some of that medium weight graphics chipboard. Just kind of give yourself a basic outline with a pen, how big you want to cut them. These bases are a little bit smaller, so we won't have as much issue with warpage as we might if they were bigger bases. I still had a little bit of an issue, but not too much. So just get a pair of scissors and then just cut these out like this. You'll need, of course, 1 base per tree. So I'm just going to make, I think I'm making 5 or 6 trees with this in this project, but we're only going to show you guys start and finish with 1. We'll go from there. So there's our bases. It looks like I'm making 5 trees. Alright, so get some tin foil. This is what we're going to use for our armatures. Just get a good piece out here, and we're going to need 1 of these big pieces per tree. So this is, we're going to count out the squares and tell you guys how much I'm using. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-ish inches. So I'm cutting out these sheets. They're 15 inches long by whatever the width of the tinfoil is, which is probably 1.5 feet, however tall the tree is going to be. So we're just going to scrunch these up and make the main trunks of the trees like I'm doing here. These will be our main armatures. You just kind of bend them up, make kind of cool shapes, whatever you want to do for your trees. This just gives you a way to make them not just straight up and down. And so now we're just going to use some hot glue, and we're going to glue them to our bases, give our tree something to stand on. Just like this. And this will again give us a cool armature that gives us our basic structure of the tree so they can be a little bit kind of gnarled or windy or whatever. So one of the main parts of this is going to be to use that paper mache, paper towel kind of concept with white glue. And this is taken pretty much directly from how DM Scotty does his trees like this. The biggest difference between mine and his are going to be that tinfoil armature. So we're just going to cover that armature with this paper mache. And this is just kind of a quick example. I didn't do most of my trees this way in the end. I did full armatures before I covered them, but this is a simpler way to show you guys what I'm talking about. So that's your basic kind of tree, and your texture is going to be there. We're going to take some smaller pieces of tinfoil. We're going to glue those on. They're going to be spun into little kind of root shapes. Just glue those on. And once they're glued on, 3 or 4 or 5 per tree, we're going to take more of that paper mache and cover them up, and that'll just give us our basic shape for our tree. I think I'm going to do a couple more here. It's a bit bigger. And then we're going to take that paper towel, some water, some glue. I'm going to do it in half pieces. Just cover that base up as best we can. And then we're going to go back in with the other half of that piece of paper towel and just cover up the rest. You don't want any of that tinfoil showing. This is just basically play with it. That paper towel is pretty malleable and pretty easy to go. So this is what an actual full armature is going to look like. So we're going to build these just like we built the actual trunk a second ago. We're going to cover these up with paper mache like I did in the previous example. And these will be, once they're done, you'll have a full tree. So I use smaller pieces for these because there's more curves and more angles to cover up because they have branches on them. But the exact same concept is there. Glue, paper towel, water, and then put that paper towel over top. That'll add strength to your tree and your armature. So just keep doing that until that entire tree is covered. This takes a little bit of time, but not that much time, and you get some pretty cool trees when you're done. So there's going to be, just keep going. You could use something like clay, I guess, to do it. I haven't tried that, but I suspect it would work fairly well. There was Luke over at Luke's Affordable Paint Service just did a tree tutorial where he's using foam as his central armature, and he's using clay over top of that, and then some of the Woodland Scenics trees to build the branches. So same kind of idea as everything else. Armature covered by something, and that'll give you your basic tree and some of your textures that you can build onto. One of the advantages to this is your paper towel and the wrinkles it makes are going to be your old gnarled tree texture right built in as you build it up. So there's our armature pretty much covered up with paper towel. You need to let that dry probably overnight. So we're just going to go back in with some of the more of that white glue and do the bases, give it a little bit of sand texture. Use any kind of flocking in here you wanted. I decided I wanted my trees to be pretty generic, so I didn't want to use grass. I didn't want to use any green colors. I wanted to keep them as a kind of neutral, so I could use them in grass, or maybe I wanted to use them in ice or snow or something. I don't know. So this is all dried up, so we're just going to use that watered down white glue over top of the sand and just let that dry again, anchor that down. I'm sure most of you have seen this concept before. This is just a watered down 50-50 white glue that we're painting over top of that dried sand just to make sure that that sand doesn't go anywhere. Alright, so we're going to start painting. We've black bombed these with some spray paint, although I ran out and had to use acrylics to finish it. Now we're going to use some of that burnt umber paint we just saw, and we're going to use that as a base coat. So it's a dark brown, and we're just going to use the dark brown acrylic paint. We're going to add some water to it to wet it down. You can also add some flow aid to this to make sure that paint flows into those cracks on that tree. Because you're going to find as you paint this, the tree's texture is going to have spaces that's hard to get the paint into. So flow aid or something like that will let you do that easier. Which basically just breaks up the surface tension like a soap does and lets that water, that paint flow into cracks easier. Alright, so we're going to go to a cashmere tan now, which is a basic tan color, light brown. We're going to use a fairly heavy dry brush over top of this to bring some of that detail out. You can see how we're going through here. And it brings up that kind of gnarled tree looking texture, which is pretty cool. Have a drink. Alright, tasty. That's that 52-foot stout. Pretty good stuff. So I got the trees pretty much done. I'm going to go in with another color here in a second just to bring that texture out a little bit more. But that gives you an idea what they look like after they're all kind of cashmere tanned up anyways. So this is a little concept there. If you saw that line, can kind of look a little bit jarring if you're looking at them closely. So just make sure that your paper towels when you're putting them on avoids those as best you can. But we're taking that oatmeal color now that I just showed you. We're going to kind of go over these really, really briefly just to bring out a little bit more texture, a little bit more highlights on the tree bark. When we're done, we'll have some pretty basic cool trees. And then once we're done that, we're going to go back to another burnt umber. This one's darker than the last one. I'm going to use this for the base. So I want the base to be a different color brown than the tree so it stands out a little bit. So we're just going to go in here with that dark burnt umber and fill in the gaps on the bases with the sand we glued in there. Just keep doing that, and then once that's done, we'll go to another tan color like we did before, and we'll use that as our highlights. However, the tan color we're going to use again is a different tan than we used initially. So this one's just called tan. These are all just paints I got from the dollar store, so I mean, get whatever color you want. Probably, like I say, you're probably going to want 4 different browns for this if you're going to do it this way. 2 for the tree, maybe 3 for the tree, and then 2 for the base color. Just so they don't completely blend into each other. We'll just dry brush over the top to bring out that texture. Just like that. Looking pretty good. Once we do that, we're going to have to add the greenery on here. And like I said, I don't like the flocking, so I'm going to use the same kind of concept DM Scotty uses. I got a bunch of these leaves for like $1.50 a bunch. I can do 1.5 trees with a bunch, so I'm going to have to go get some more. I'm going to need to cut off 4 branches One for each of the branches sticks out, one for the top at least. And these have wires in them, so they'll push into the trees a little bit, but they might get in the way. But if you get a tool, you can help get those branches in a little bit further. So we make a hole on the tip of the branch and add some hot glue, and then put in one of these leaf branch things. They're going to be giant leaves to make the trees look even bigger, which is what I want personally. So we're just going to snip off one of the ends because there was no hole on the end of that branch. I'm going to take this metal tool and we're just going to make that hole deeper. Then we're going to take our branches. I'm going to see how they fit. This one sticks out a little bit too much, so I'm just going to take my shears, snip that off, take the hot glue, and I'm going to stick that in the hole there so the branch has something to stick to, the foliage. Then I'm going to stick that foliage into that hole, and then we're just going to make sure that that's all glued down. So now this tree's had most of its foliage attached, and you can see what one of them looks like. So they look pretty good. Like DM Scotty says, they don't get in the way of the table. So this is what they look like on the table. I've got 4 or 5 trees here, and I got like a mausoleum, so you can see the people coming out. You can see the scale of the people with the trees, and it just in general, I think they look pretty cool, and they don't obscure the table too much. They got a lot of cool texture, a lot of visual interest. So if you found this interesting, please hit like. If you want to see more, of course, subscribe to Starships and Steel. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.